You're listening to Wicked Thoughts, a podcast by Flair Castro. This show helps founders and professionals understand business trends, social media, digital lifestyle, and how to be a better entrepreneur. For Season 4, we cover topics powered by a dash of social. Let's start learning in 3, 2, 1.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Season 4 of Wicked Thoughts. So, our guest for today is Javier Lorenzana. He is the co-founder and CEO of Up Next, where they accelerate professionals for the digital age. Hi there, Javier.
Wait, Flair, it's Javier.
Oh, that I asked you last time, and then I was like, Javier. Like,
It's Javier. You can call me Javi in the conversation.
okay, Javi is fine. Okay. Hi, Javi. I'm sorry about that. I didn't know you had a preference for your name. It's
No problem.
okay.
No problem. Yeah, I know it. When we were talking to, I was nervous when I called you Flair because I wasn't sure about it either.
Yeah, us and our weird names, right? But
Yeah.
Javier, yeah. Please do introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah. So hi everyone. Great to be on this podcast. Shout out to Flair for including me here. I'm honored to be a guest. But yeah, I'm Javi. I'm 21, so still technically a college student, and I'm building Up Next. So Up Next is a career accelerator for the digital age. So what we do is we train individuals, teams. If this is where you can really find the curriculum, and just the community to succeed in whatever's up next. So we have some really amazing people in our community. Flair, is one of them too. They're working in places like Apple, Binance, and some of the best startups here. So yeah, thanks so much, Flair, for inviting me again. Really happy to be here.
My pleasure, Javi. So, before we delve into the things that we want to talk about for the for this episode, I want to know how you came up with Up Next, because are you still in school, Ma?
Yeah,
You're a college student.
I still technically am a student. I'm on a gap year right now. So, but this has been like taking basically all of my time. So yeah.
It seems so. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess how we came up. Well, if you're asking about the specific moment, it's kind of dumb, right? It was just, I guess.
Why?
Well, I have this funny story I tell the people about the exact moment when it happened, because I was just eating spaghetti. I clearly remember I was just eating some spaghetti with my family in the living room. And then I get the idea, we had already been working on different types of projects. And it sort of just came together, and I dropped my fork, and then I just start laughing. And I come into my room, and I contact my co-founder to be, and it just like started from there, right? I can give you that was I guess the moment, but I think the real story was, prior to that, in as a university student, it was really struggling to find, I guess, the right people who had the same career goals as me. Right? I think when you're in a place like university, you kind of end up going with the flow. It's so easy to fall into the herd, so to speak, end up in something like a corporate job or doing other projects, right? And I think that's fine for some people. But if you're more, for those of, I guess, like for me at least, I just wanted something more. I already, built up a base of startup experience back here. And it was just really about, hey, I can't really find the necessary curriculum and connections that I need. And I came back to the Philippines, wanted to take that gap year from university. And it sort of just blossomed there, I actually did a podcast. I think what's interesting is that Up Next actually started as podcast. So it started as an attempt at content creation for myself, right? The podcast.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it helped me. The reason for that, the podcast helped me sort of give me the confidence that I could reach out to all these great entrepreneurs. So we have really different stories, great people there. And it also gave me the courage that I could build an audience, right? So we had, I think, about 500 listeners per episode, and they were like about the same ones going back. And from there, it was like, okay, now that we have this, and let's transition to something else. We started writing a newsletter, and eventually it started becoming a community. And then that's where it sort of became more course-like. So yeah, I guess that's a rather
Wow, lengthy, but it gave me some context about how you came up with Up Next. So was this a year ago, or couple of, or when did you start Up
We
Next?
started Up Next this March, so March 2021. So
Just this year?
we're very new.
Amazing.
It's been a bit weird to see the progress, and I think 7 months now. Yeah, exactly today, March like 15, right? So
Mm.
it's been a journey. Yeah.
Congratulations. You had 7 months of startup experience.
Yes.
Diba? Was this the first for you for like building a startup, or you mentioned you had an experience before? What was it?
Well, before it was more, internships.
Oh.
While I was in college, I was grinding multiple startup internships. So it was a
Mm.
interesting to see, and it's sort of in these different roles too. So product, I did a lot of marketing. I did some operations work. Um,
Mm.
so and intentionally so, I really wanted to try different aspects of a business, because I really just wanted to learn those different facets. So yeah, and then I
What
was
was the
working on a few side projects, but yeah.
Oh, for sure. But what was the first parang problem that you encountered wherein you said, now, really, I need to build up next? What was that parang moment? I know it was when you were eating and all, but which specific problem you encountered in college na parang, really, I have to build this thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can't say that it was a specific moment where I realized it was a huge problem, but it
Mm-hmm.
was something that had been developing me throughout the years. I guess just for context, right? I started interning at startups when I was 15. And from there I really did different internships every year. Again, as I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
trying different things. But I
Mm-hmm.
still realized that, some internships were better than others. And some internships I didn't really learn
Oh.
too much,
Mm.
right? And I was like, okay, so I had the idea, okay, some experiences are way better than others, right? And
Mm.
some internships I did well. I'm sorry, I didn't get like that much value from it. Um, and when I got to university, it was okay. I'm probably, I kind of knew myself, right? I'm someone who's relatively entrepreneurial. But then, I started finding myself, gearing towards a life, let's say in investment banking or consulting, like you usually do
Mm.
if you're or corporate, right? As you usually do. And I think, it was in that year where I was sort of processing. I was
Mm.
like, 'cause in my second year, I had the 4.0 GPA. I had, all these internships. I had a really great internship lined up at a really great firm also. And then it sort of paused. I was like, man, what am I doing? I was kind of burnt out. I was thinking, is this really the path I want to take? And it sort of got to the point where I realized, hey, I bet a lot of other people are feeling this way. They don't want to necessarily stay in that, structured system.
Right.
You know, you,
Mm.
you're filtered in. You have these gatekeepers in university, right? So I was thinking, hey, there has to be a better way to do this, and that's where I think that at the end of the day is the need or the problem we're trying to address, right? Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. And you had this whole network from your initial podcast, and
Yeah.
that's where you started reaching out to speakers who could possibly be the first mentors in Up Next. So, did you have some sort of first event with Up Next, or like some sort of first official cohort under the startup? How did you validate it?
Yeah. So it was a really big sprint, right? So we got the idea, I think around mid-March, and the first
Mm.
cohort launched exactly a month later. So that whole
Mm.
time we're like, okay, how do we make all the sessions? How do we make sure all the people are engaged? What's the good student journey and all of those things. It was a mad, I think I would use sprint, but it's also, it's really about just being super focused on, who's coming in here. So we already had the community. I have a bunch more stories about like how I built, I guess, like my own little my pocket community, I guess, and then like it sort of came together with, all the people we invited. But it was just a lot of hard work, a lot of cold
For
messaging.
sure.
Yeah.
So, what was that first event? Is it related to marketing or social media, or what was it about?
The first cohort we ran was actually for founders, right? So founders, for
Oh,
startup founders.
that's cool.
The reason why is because I wanted to learn how to be a startup founder myself, right? So,
Mm.
I think took a few courses on entrepreneurship in university, but I mean, they're just so disconnected from what's actually happening. So I wanted to learn straight from the people who were there, right? So we got a few, Y Combinator founders. We got a few people from the Teal Fellowship, HSBC, Facebook, Google,
Amazing.
all these different speakers that we had collected, right? And it just clicked together, right? And I'm really happy with like all the connections and friends that I've made through Up Next too. So yeah.
Gosh, and like you've run this for just 7 months and you have such growth and traction.
Uh,
Are you happy with how you're running things right now?
I mean, I
Your
think
speed,
I would tell you like it could definitely be better. There are a lot of things that we
Uh-huh.
can improve on for sure. But what I'm most happy with is really just the people who are here with us, right? I mean,
The
whether it's
community.
the mentors, whether it's some of the really experienced people
Mm,
who are just love the problem we're solving and who can offer advice to our students,
for sure.
even the students, right? Like I can say that because we're so aligned in, I guess, what they want, um, the careers, types of careers they want, the things they're into, like, digital skills, internet stuff, right? I've made a
Mhm.
lot more friends. I've made so many friends and so many meaningful connections here, compared to like other places, right? Like school or things like that. So yeah.
Or your internships,
Yeah, yeah.
for sure. More value in building your own thing. That's amazing.
Thanks so much.
Really? I mean, I'm just overwhelmed but how you were able to do all this in 7 months. How big is your team?
Oh yeah, so we
There must be a
are
lot helping you for sure.
yeah, we are two full-time founders. So we're basically working on this full-time, right? My co-founder is
Mm.
also, student. She, funnily enough, she also had this major career path to go into law. So
Oh,
very structured. But even she had that same realization where it's like, hey, I want something that I actually want, that's something more self-directed. Um, and so she's doing this.
at your own pace, right?
Yeah, yeah. So
Mm.
two full-time founders, and then we just have the two other people helping us out, and then
Mm.
part-time, and there's still students actually. Our first, I guess, like quote unquote hires were students from our cohort, and we're really
Mm.
like happy they stuck with this. So yeah.
That's amazing. It's just like going, you have this whole pocket community, but they're also the ones who are helping you. They end up being your hire and all. So
Right.
yeah, it's really interesting. What do you do with the platform? Are you creating an MVP? Is it code based or generally just a community? How are you, like, are you the CTO? Do you have a CTO? I know
Yeah.
you're the CEO, so
Yeah, I'm
yeah.
the, I'm the CEO. I'm technically the one who does all of the technical work also. So
You're also the CTO. Okay.
yeah. Um, we built everything. We have a platform, we have websites, obviously the application, everything is all neatly integrated into this. I built it with no code tools, so shout out to no code tools.
Oh,
Fast,
amazing.
really quick. And yeah, right. So it's been really fun to learn while building and just like go through this whole experience.
Cool, cool. Okay. So when I first visited your site, you had some familiar faces that, probably they were part of the first cohort, the founders cohort that you have, but you also have just recently the social media marketing cohort. And
Right.
I guess that's how we met. you know, it's social media marketing, and that's what we're doing at Content Dash. So, how did you come up with saying now, okay, this will be the next cohort that we will do? It's social media marketing.
That's a great question. And I think before I can say exactly how we decided on
Yeah.
social media marketing,
Hmm.
there's just really I had a conversation the other day with Dexter from
Oh, from Swarm.
yeah, so
Mm-mm.
shout out to Dexter.
Hi, Dexter.
Listening to this way, and basically he mentioned that the next, I guess, generation of the, so to speak, credential or education, the actual, I guess, signal, right? That will be very important for students and people who want to upskill for the digital age. Is it's really going to be industry driven, right? So it's going to be demand driven, but from the industry side. So, we looked at the specific markets that the specific, I guess, verticals, if you want, or careers where there are generally a lot of people in it, but it's not very structured. Um, the practices aren't always the best. Even with us, we had our own issues hiring for social media. I guess even for us, right? We were at the stage where okay, we want to build our brand online. we tried it out with a few people who were like at least like marketers with us, and it's difficult, right? It's difficult. There's a lot more nuance and technicalities that I think a lot of people overlook. And I think there's also this stigma where marketing is just like, oh, it's just marketing, right? There seems to be that stigma, which I never really got, especially since I interned in those roles before. So we started with that, right? What's something a lot of people are already into, but what's something that the industry really needs a lot of, right? And I think naturally from my experiences with my podcast and just like going into all these conferences and internships before, I connected with Chris Starr, who is our director for that cohort. Yeah, and we agreed. He's a podcast host in Tech in Asia. I guess somewhat of a startup influencer, like other people.
Hi, Chris, influencer.
Yeah, I guess that's how we decided it.
Cool. And since it was Chris who proposed or probably like connected with you to create the social media marketing cohort, and I actually saw like the list of topics that were covered. Generally, how was it for you? I know, are you already did it already wrap up this cohort, or
It's still ongoing. So around the second,
still ongoing?
third week. Next week will be the third week. Yeah.
And how was Chris managing all this? I should have asked Chris. But yeah.
Yeah. So
But I had an interview with him last week. Yeah,
Oh,
he was
yeah.
my guest. Yeah. But I wasn't able to ask him about the cohort, so I'll just ask you.
You can talk to me about that. You can talk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how? Go ahead.
Yeah, Chris has been really great. Obviously Chris is someone who's been in this space for 10 plus.
Oh yes, true.
He's worked with like so many brands, as he's probably told you. I bet the audience also knows some of the brands he's worked with, right? And it was he's just a great teacher, right? And even for me, like I guess this whole experience is sort of me building like an education where I learned the things I want to learn. Like I really wanted to learn, okay, how do you be one, a good marketer, and two, build your brand with more social, on social media, get social leverage, build up your credibility on different platforms. So he's just been great in determining
For
what
sure. Yeah. And for us as startup founders, and I'm not sure if you saw this parang trend on Twitter. There's always what they call the startup Twitter, right? People posting about their startup ideas, posting about things that go trending. They apparently go trending. I mean, it's unfair. How do we do that? Is this something that you teach at your SMM cohort?
So I think that's where the community side definitely comes in, right? I guess being more responsive to trends. We have a forum on the Up Next platforms, and that's where people can really say, oh, here are new terms, here are new things that are happening, new trends. I think the other day Chris posted a lot about, we had very in-depth discussion when Facebook went down and sort of the ramifications of that. I think it's really interesting to see. I bring up community because that's really how people continue to stay updated. I think that's a big part of the learning experience, right? Like for me personally, even though we're out here building the curriculum, I still learn, let's say like 80 or 70% of the things that I know just by talking to all the different students and instructors in the cohort, right? So
and listening to the community.
Through them that I continue to get updated, and through each other, right? They support each other, give each other feedback and things.
Yeah. So you have both. You build the platform, but generally it's being, you build the platform as a seed, and then parang the community around it is what really made it grow, diba? And then from the community as well, you learn about tips and tricks and also trends. You mentioned na si Chris, he was able to discuss with the students about the outage of Facebook, which was really a big thing. Even for me, I had to send out like an email blast just to talk about it, to the content dash users. So any other things that the SMM cohort were able to discuss? Give us an idea. Some of the things na parang it was mentioned here, but you wish a lot of people knew about it.
Okay, can you repeat the question? Sorry.
Yeah, I was asking like, are there things discussed in your SMM cohort that you wish let's say, other founders know about social media?
Hmm. That's a great question. Yeah. I think off the top of my head, um,
Like maybe how to use Twitter aside from just, ranting about the latest bug you found in your code. I don't know.
right,
Because
right.
there's always the build in public movement. I'm not sure if you saw that. Diba?
Yeah, there definitely is a build public movement. I guess I can't pull off the most important one off my head. I can tell you the most recent one,
Yeah,
which
go
was
ahead.
yesterday actually. So yesterday, one of our activities as a cohort was for the students to actually do a live stream, let's say on like Kumu, right?
I saw that. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Chris
And
posted about it. Yep.
yeah, and even us, as a founder myself, I've been wanting to do like things like content, things like live events.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it's always seemed like such a hassle or such a big deal to do because you have to fix all these moving parts. But seeing the participants, they made it just 2 days so after it was announced, right? And just seeing them go through that, and like even us to some extent having to prepare for that, it's we underestimated the ease, I think, of live streaming and the impact it can also have on your brand, right? I think it's about finding
Hmm.
I think if your brand is more, Filipino centric, it definitely live streaming on Kumu could work really
It
well.
would make sense.
I think that was the
Yes.
most recent thing that I picked up from the cohort too.
Sure. And it is it really as easy as like turning on your camera and then doing something live since it's live streaming. I mean, so easy to create content nowadays. I mean, it's not just Kumo, diba, but also TikTok. Are you making sure that, let's say, Up Next has presence across all social media? How are you managing it right now? I'm wondering.
That's a great question. So it's funny, right? Because we're taking the social media cohort along with the other students, and we're trying to figure it out ourselves. Like how to progress through this, right? We did it for founders, and it seemed to at least be working out. So like, why not do it social media too? Um, I'd say how we manage it is I think it's really focusing just on those few so those few platforms where you get the most conversions already.
Yes.
I, I
Agree.
I think like you can agree that you have to be very data driven and very I think that's where it comes from, right? The technical side of marketing, which a lot of
Mm.
people overlook, which is testing just like different types of ads. I know in our small group, right? I was in a discussion. One of our participants from Akadarina, they're another startup, right? They test like multiple ads, and we had a discussion where I have another friend who has an e-commerce company, and they run 57 consecutive ads all at the
Just
same
to
time.
test. Mm.
Just test each keyword, test each demographic, and things like that, right? And it's very technical, more technical than I thought, right? So that's something we're trying to adopt consistently. Just testing which platforms, which messaging, and things like that, right?
Mm. Okay. Yep. Of
Yeah.
course. Well, which right now, which platforms make most? I mean, you made more sense. I mean, for Up Next to be on.
Facebook and Instagram, which was very
Mm.
surprising to me, which is very, very surprising to me because I came with the impression that I thought it was going to be either Twitter, LinkedIn,
Yeah, I thought it's going to be Twitter.
Twitter,
Yeah.
LinkedIn, Twitter because that's where the community they find each
Yep.
other.
Yep.
LinkedIn because that's more professional, right? And we host courses that are helping people with their professional goals and communities,
Mm-mm.
right? And then even TikTok, I was expecting like, hey, okay, TikTok, maybe we might have some like people who want
Yes.
to do that. It's really interesting though. Facebook and Instagram are by far, right? When we look at the data, it's by far like the ones
Mm.
with the most conversions. Yeah.
Yeah, and for sure you got a lot of leads there for the SMM cohort, and we
Yeah.
sent some your way as well.
Yes.
I hope they signed up.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah,
I can talk to you about that later.
for sure. Okay. So you also do for Up Next, basically you do B2B retraining for all these tech roles. Can you expound about that?
Thank you for asking that. That's something we're planning on doing more of, right?
I see.
When we started this, we thought it would be more for professionals who want to shift careers and be marketers. And we have and let's say students, right, who are currently working at startups and like they want to get to the next level or something. We have a few of those. So I think there are multiple from students like Ateneo, UP. And then there are others who shifted from being let's say a preschool teacher and now
Mm.
they're they're learning the ropes, being more technical, data driven, and now we're like matching them with different startups, right? Who are recruiting for those roles. But then we realized something interesting, which is that companies were sending their teams to us and like having us like basically train them. It really feels like, and these were startups and more traditional companies, which is really interesting.
Mm.
Right. So for the startups, it's okay, let's train our people to have more, just more updated skills and things like that. And for companies, it's like, okay, let's find a way to make our social media practices more relevant to the age we're in now. Right. So that's a little bit about what we're doing, and we're definitely exploring that more.
Right.
So, yeah.
But then I mean, that makes sense. But if right now your model is doing per cohort, do you plan to also do something more, I don't know, intimate or more private for these startups or
Yes.
for these B2B companies? So
Yeah.
like on demand, right?
Yeah. We're considering doing it as separate tracks. So on the one hand, we have our cohorts are so a big part of what we do, right, is, I guess for context, is we really have to screen the people who come into the community. That's why our
Right.
application process is two-step. So there's like an interview and the
Mm.
written segment, and that just helps
Mm-mm.
us filter out the people who would really be driven, right, and
Mhm.
solve for our community, right. Um, and so a big part of that proposition is that, hey, okay, companies come in, you can retrain your people, and they get to rub shoulders, right, with some of the, big people in the industry, right? Like one of our students right now was, I hope I can say this. one of our students right now was, let's say, like ex Apple, right? And when we saw his Apple,
Whoa.
it's like, whoa, okay, this is like a different level than we expected. And then we saw some more coming in from some like top FMCGs, some people who are building their own agencies. And I was like, huh,
Mm.
wow, okay. So like we from like a huge applicant pool, we really just like narrowed it down to the top 20. So yeah.
And it's something I will talk to you about after this for sure.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, so okay, on to the next one that we can talk about. Like, how are your students learning social media?
We love project-based learning, right? So whenever we
Ah.
have our cohorts, whether it's founders, we're doing social media marketing, we also have things like tech sales, which is another thing.
Mm.
It's always, they're always working on something already, whether it's, building up their portfolio, whether it's building up a specific page. So we, at the beginning, we're like, okay, do you have, let's say, a social media page you want to build up? Do you have a brand that you want to build up? And from there, the rest of the cohort is adding pieces to it so that which directly relates to their project, right? So in the first week, okay, let's say make a full-blown market analysis of the brand, right? I mean, like that was something that was really cool. In just the
Mm.
first week, it's a full lecture on just like, straight up marketing in general, right? And
Mm.
then it's applied to their own brand, to their own projects. And then next week, it's like, okay, which platforms, which posts to make, etc. Right. So it's really stacking on to the project.
Mm.
Barely any theory, just all application and all learning by doing. So yeah.
Do you tell them to use specific platforms, or are they free to explore whichever works for the project they're working on? How does it
Yeah,
work?
they're free to explore, which we thought was a bit of a risk because it's
It
easier,
seems
it's more
yeah, seems to
structured
be.
to just teach Facebook. But I
Mm.
think social media is so much more open-ended than just that. You can build your brand on different platforms. Like some companies would do really well on Facebook, let's say, but they
Mm.
also others would do really well on, let's say, like LinkedIn, right? And you can't sort of plan ahead for that. You sort of just have to test that and plug away at it, right? So we chose to make it more open-ended and just like supplement the fact by that they're a community and that they teach each other as well. So yeah.
It's true. And speaking of planning ahead, I know that's what we're doing at Content Dash. Like you
Yeah.
have these content or campaigns that you want to plan ahead for, but really we're not telling you to use a certain platform, right? It's just to just plan. So
Yes.
just curious, does it make sense for these, let's say, brands or startups to plan ahead? I mean, knowing what you know right now from the program or from the cohort that you had.
That's a great question. I think normally I would have said like, of course you should make a plan. I think it's like a lot more nuanced than that. I think you should have a very clear direction, right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
need to have like a strong strategy, need to know who your market is and generally trend there. But I think a lot of people make the mistake of over planning to the point where you can't really react to, let's say, oh, I have this plan. Let's say at the start, I have this plan, let's go Facebook full blown. And you
True.
have this plan to do that. But then let's say, you start getting traction in Instagram, right? If you plan too constrictively, I think you start to lose opportunities. And I think with social media, the biggest mindset I've learned is really to keep rethinking, right? To keep, going back to, okay, what are my higher level objectives? How can I keep tweaking? How can I keep iterating? How can I keep being more data driven and finding the right answers? So that's a process we're definitely going through, and it's not easy, but I think in the long term, it's gonna work out, right? That's where I'm at right now. Don't take my word for it though. But yeah.
No, really. I mean, that insight makes sense because, I mean, for us, since we have been running an agency for so long, it's always sometimes the brands have to look at the other angle, which is consistency, because it's good that you'd be able to test out a lot of things. Of course, because that's what social is about. Nothing is really like final in social media. One thing could be trending today, next day it might not be the trending topic anymore. That's why, there are instances wherein I've seen ads who are looking for meme content creator, Diba? Kasi these memeists, I'm not sure if they call it that, but these are the type of content that bring in, the eyeballs that you might want or the engagement that you might want in your page. But for me, I think especially with how we're building Content Dash right now, it's the consistency that you're trying to like really pin down. Like just be consistent. Even if you try to experiment next week, the next day, as long as you have that habit in place, that would really help you with your social media marketing.
How do you, I'm curious, like how do you guys approach, the consistency with the testing mindset? Like, do you have any insights? Like, I want to definitely learn from you too.
Okay, you're putting me in a corner here. but, but that's actually something to think about, because when we say consistency, here's how I would answer that. I mean, if you were my client or my customer, let's just have that role play. If you were asking about how to focus on testing versus having that consistency, I would say stick with a weekly theme. Let's say for this month, we're heading towards the holidays, right? So maybe for in the next couple of weeks or the next 4 weeks, you would have consistent themes. Let's say you pick 2 days of the week, and then you have a theme for each of the days. So maybe the first chosen day, you would think about testimonials from your students who were happy about the social media cohort, right? So social marketing cohort. So you can feature testimonials from your students, but then let's say on the second day, you would stick to another theme, which is, let's say, featured founder for your next cohort. So now you have 2 consistent themes every week. In the next 4 weeks, you create the consistency from there. But we're not saying that you are not going to experiment on the rest of the days, because remember, you have the other 5 days of the week to experiment. So the experimentation comes in via either the content that you post on the other days, or it could come from the ads that you are going to run and test. So yeah, so have that consistency, but also, of course, experiment on your other content. Even the platform, you still have to experiment that. Diba?
Interesting. Sure.
That's what I think, though.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I appreciate that too.
No, not really. I loved answering that. Yeah, that makes sense too. Of course, because that's what we're trying to create, right? With Content Dash, it's the habit of creating, and that's valuable.
Yeah, that's what I really love also. Like the fact that you can have structured campaigns, but also have the flexibility to the other experiments. I think that's very like well built in also to the platform.
Yes.
So,
yes, exactly. Yeah. So, eto, Javi, what's next for up next? What's next for up next?
We keep saying. I think at the start, when we made up next, like I always said, what's up next, and it just got so old.
What's up next? I love that.
We missed it.
Good play.
Yeah, we missed. It was. I kept saying it, and it wore out very fast. I think. Well, what's next is we. Speaking of consistency, we want to be really consistent to the mission, right? Which is really giving other people more direct routes to getting the careers they want, right? Whether that's in social media, whether it's in things like sales or being their own entrepreneur, even HR, right? We want to expand into different verticals and different types of careers, and really just build a network where people can find each other, learn from each other, and succeed in whatever's up next. So
Ah,
yeah,
diba? That was so wonderful. Parang
practice.
wonderful. Oh, phrase right there.
Yeah.
That's what's next for up next.
Yeah,
Ayun,
so
I'll insert this ha, kasi parang ano lang, curious to know, do you plan on adding, let's say, parang topics? I'm not sure if si Chris was able to propose this one, but maybe for the social media marketing cohort, the next one, do you plan to also include the mention of mga memes? Because like I mentioned kanina, parang I'm really curious why these job openings are cropping up na parang they're hiring people who can create memes. I'm not sure if you saw that, but
that's so interesting.
yeah. Like
It's
there are parang there are expert meme content creator and then they start hiring these guys. Do you think we're gonna lose jobs because these businesses prefer memes?
I think that's
How do
really
we plan? How do we plan?
yeah. I don't necessarily think it's missing jobs. My first reaction to that is probably because you have these more millennial and Gen Z people entering companies' target markets,
Yes.
right? Which is
Mm.
Gen Z is definitely built on meme culture, TikToks, all of these quick funny.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I don't think like content creators will like lose jobs or anything. Of course not, right? I think it's just going to adapt how just the nature of content is going, but even us, right? So one thing we really want to start doing is more micro content, whereas before you would have seen more lengthy, let's say like 8-minute videos or something like that. It's really about just embracing, people do want information really quick, right? And that's just the nature of where it's trending right now for sure. We had a conversation about this the other day. Believe it or not, like meme culture with one of our small groups. So one of our participants,
Oh.
what they do is esports. And yeah, basically it's an esports league here in the Philippines for collegiate players. Right? It's called Academia. So make sure
Yes. I've heard of
that's
Akad Arena. He
that
actually liked my tweet as well.
definitely right. So it's interesting, right? Because a big thing of what they do, targeting Gen Z audiences for sure.
Mm.
It's really making memes, more of those short form content. We had a discussion on how they're planning to approach that, and it's really, I think the thing with memes is that you really need to know your audience well, right? If you make memes that they can't, memes are
Oh
very,
gosh.
if you know, you know, right? It's like if you know, you know. If you don't,
Yes.
you don't. So if you're not your target audience and you're making, let's say I were to make memes for esports, I don't play video games, right? Like I don't
You
play.
don't? Why? I'm kidding.
I play. I'm just. I play
What?
chess. Right. So like that would be super. I would just make a bad meme. They would fire me straight up. I couldn't make good memes for gamers. I'll be like, yeah, guys, let's play Dota. Dude, I don't know. Right?
Oh
So
my gosh.
I hope I don't get hate for this, by the way. I play like
You won't, don't worry.
I play FIFA and NBA. Like those are my games. Yeah.
And then imagine you making a meme out of those, diba? That
Yeah,
it wouldn't
exactly.
be relevant for
No. So I think that's the direction, right? It's really building authentic connection to your audience. And that starts by knowing them and just by being one of them as well. So
So
that's
it's
a
like you're saying, yeah, I know, right? So it's like saying that you should not be forcing yourself to make meme content on social media when you don't know your audience.
like
Because if you would try and force it, you would be really cringy
yes,
and very
yes. That would be very bad.
and you would really be corny and no one's gonna follow your page anymore. But yeah, parang hugot lang siya because I see a lot of Squid Game memes ngayon and Even the pages that are, supposed to be B2B, they're posting Squid Game related stuff. And I'd be like, okay, maybe. But
Yeah. I mean, like definitely, like it depends on your audience, what your audience is into. Like if you were, let's say, Rolex, and your target was older people, people
oh
kind of,
gosh,
and you posted the same stuff, that would be very bad, I think.
you would fire your social media creator or your intern, whichever posted that.
That would not be good.
But for me, if I could add it in, the value kasi, you mentioned Gen Zs and millennials being more on top of what's trending. And this is also something that we have to look into as parang practitioners of social media in B2B,
Right.
because these generations are actually the ones who know the algorithm more. And because you guys know the algorithm more, you'd be the one to correctly consult about things that would work if you bring it into the context of B2B. That's what I think. Yeah. Yun lang.
Interesting observation. I'm writing this down, friend. I'm writing this down.
Okay.
There you go.
But yeah, I'm saying na merong value yung what Gen Zs know. They know how to manipulate the algorithm. They know how to make it work, how to make things trending. So for me, if you're going to hire people who would manage your social media, it's the younger generations because they know the platforms more. For me, but just bring it into the context of B2B. Yun lang. That's the actual challenge where the other older practitioners might be able to come in. Yon.
What do you mean by going more B2B? Like when we do more B2B programs, or like
No,
what do
it's actually more like these creators, yung mga social media practitioners that you are training, like teach them how to bring that into the context of B2B. Like they know this, they already know these algorithms, they know how to play it, diba? But how do you bring that so that it would help these startups or these
you
businesses, diba? Parang iibahin mo yung context that it would still be relevant for the page, but it's being manipulated to
right.
work in these algorithms for these platforms. So parang ganun. Yeah. Yeah. So yun ko lang siya na chika ha. So yun.
Yeah, I think it's interesting though. I think that you mentioned something that I was really interested in, because we had a discussion about this in our Up Next small group as well. I think there is a misconception that it's the younger generations who know the algorithms better, who are the ones who use social media more.
Tell me.
Because I think, yeah, I think if I'm making any sense, I might not make sense for a lot of people, but I know, like for us in my family, I'm not the one who uses TikTok the most. It's actually like my dad. And when my
What?
yeah, and when my dad sees like all these different like restaurants, or like let's say that he finds like a local restaurant or like a local, I guess, product, he's gonna be the one to get it. And he is the decision maker on that, right? Like I'm not gonna tell my family where to eat. I don't like have all that power, right? But if it was someone like him, right, then that's really meaningful. Now, I think there are a lot more studies of this. But I don't think it's just Gen Z and millennials who are the biggest consumers of social media. There are like a lot of, I guess, I don't want to get this wrong. The
Oh.
older than X, I think it's Gen X, right?
Yes, X and the boomers, I think.
Exactly. We're on there too. So it's interesting. It's interesting to see. I think that's a misconception, especially here in the Philippines, right? Where it's very social. Everyone's super social.
Yes, yeah. We all are. Although there are people who prefer to be on stealth mode on social, but
Yeah,
there are
yeah.
people like that. But generally, I mean, you can see the whole population. They're always on their phones, they're using Facebook mostly,
Right.
and being very out there on Instagram, especially in this pandemic. So, yeah. We'll see where this goes, but interesting to geek out about it with you. So,
Yeah.
yeah, this is fun. So, yeah, before we wrap up, Javi, I ask all guests about this one. So leave me with one wicked thought.
Oh man, I'm nervous.
The
Nervous. One week.
most evil, I'm kidding, not the most evil, but one thing that you want to leave our listeners. Go.
Is it okay if I think about this?
Sige, go.
wicked
Some
thought.
wicked thought perhaps about how you're serving professionals via Up Next.
Well, yeah, in that case, I think wicked thought, your community matters so much more than the curriculum you get when it comes to just the opportunities you're able to access, just the things you learn, right? I think I brought this up earlier. I can say this for the people in the cohort too. Like 80% of what I've been learning, of what everyone's been learning, is really just from talking to other people. And if your community is not very, not very driven, not very, not very, they don't really look for those opportunities, I think that can lead you one way. But if you have a community full of smart people backing you up, right, I think that's very meaningful, and that's going to lead to a lot more growth than you just like watching videos on YouTube. So if you're looking for a place like that, then definitely check out Up Next and what we're building. We're building more cohorts for different types of careers. So definitely check it out.
And that's Javi Lorenzana, everyone, with his wicked thoughts. So yeah, and thank you, Javi. Thank you for being our guest here. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, this
Yeah,
is
so
fun.
yeah. So before we go, tell us where to find you or what's your website.
I'm
Go.
most active on Twitter. So I'm at Javi Lorenzana. Yes, on Twitter. Up next is join Up Next. I also have a bit of a blog that I haven't updated in a while. It's Lorenzana. So that's my last name, lorenzana.substack.com. If you want to check out, I guess like our old podcast, which is what turned into the Bookcast, into Up Next. The podcast name is the Bookcast. You can find, I'm sure Flair will include the links there. So yeah.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you, Javi. Bye-bye.
And that was the latest episode from Wicked Thoughts. This season is sponsored by the Company Co-working Space in Cebu and Content Dash, a simple and fast social media content planner. Sign up for a free account at www.contentdash.app. Tune in for more wicked conversations right here at Wicked Thoughts.